All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an all-new episode of Big Time Hoops, the podcast. And my guest tonight, I feel like the best way to describe him, because every time I ask some of these guys on that I've had who their favorite player is, it's this guy. So it's basically your favorite player's favorite player. That's what I'm going to call him. Andy Bedard joining us on Big Time Hoops, the podcast. Coming from Florida right now, we're fresh off a Hall of Fame induction a couple weeks ago. What's going on, Andy?
How you doing, bud? Everything's good.
Yeah, so like I mentioned off the top, recently inducted into the Maine Hall of Fame, Maine Basketball Hall of Fame, and it was a year delayed because of COVID. But how do you celebrate a Hall of Fame induction? What's that like? For most of us, we never get that opportunity. So this is something fresh. How did you celebrate your induction?
Well, it's a little underwhelming because I actually didn't have a chance to go because I was down here in Florida. But knowing a few people in the class, I had a chance to kind of connect and congratulate them and tell some stories. And one person in particular, TJ Cowett, who was like one of my best friends going through high school and also one of my biggest rivals who had a lot of success, was inducted. So it kind of gave me a chance to reconnect with him and talk with him about his family and tell some old war stories of the Mountain Valley Winthrop rivalry. And obviously Amy Vachon was at Maine when I was at Maine, and we're still close, and watching her with all her success and just have a chance to kind of take a break and kind of acknowledge the success, but also congratulate my peers and kind of be part of that whole thing. So it wasn't some sort of big celebration, but it was it was just fun to kind of go down memory lane and then appreciate the quality of characters that are in that class. So was really happy to be in it and enjoy the memories. So, and the other thing that's a little bit on the sad side of that is it's another, when you get into a Hall of Fame, it's just kind of like a little bit of a telltale of you're getting old.
Your class was pretty stacked, though. I mean, how would you compare your class to some of these other classes? You just mentioned a couple that were in there, and there was many more on top of those other two. Where do you rank this class?
Well, you have to kind of, just because you're old and you don't have to go play tomorrow, you have to say we're the best class. I mean, it's that I don't have to go, talk about a player then play him next week. So there's no more games. So I'm just going to go ahead and say we have the best class.
And you mentioned TJ also got inducted, and he's down in Florida too. So is that what you guys do? You guys make the Hall of Fame and just settle down there in Florida?
He's been down here for years. I mean, he's like he's the full package. I mean, coming out of high school, I think he was a scratch golfer with a 5.0 GPA, if that's even possible. And then, went to Villanova. He could have gone to anywhere he wanted to go. And, we were kind of close going through college a little bit, and then kind of life takes over, right? So he starts his family, I start my family, and really hadn't talked to him in years and years. And then this kind of article came out in the paper, and I was like, oh, let me reach out to TJ. So, he kind of set the standard. He's been down here for years, so he figured it out a little while before I did.
Yeah, so you mentioned your rivalry with him in high school, and we're going to go back and kind of trace that, but I want to go back to the very beginning with you. So you mentioned Mountain Valley. You got to correct me if I'm wrong, because towns, I know, school names that don't match up with the town, I sometimes struggle with, but we're talking Rumford, right? We're talking Western Maine.
We are.
We're talking Milltown, right? Rumford was a Milltown, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me about growing up in Rumford. I'm guessing Milltown, Western Maine Hills community was behind you guys. So it was all about athletics. It was all about the high school. Is that pretty accurate?
It is. It was a great time. It was a different time. So obviously it was the era before the internet, really, and cell phones and podcasts and anything like that. So if you wanted to hear or see about a player, I mean, you had to, take the heel toe express to the gym or find a ride somehow. So it's a great town in tough town, Milltown, hardworking community that just absolutely loved sports. And, Mountain Valley came about when Rumford and Mexico merged. So that was the original big rivalry back in the day. And, just great football community and like tough football kids that all kind of seemed to like play basketball for the most part. So it was a competitive, like kind of tougher town that, the community appreciated, your hard work and, being a competitor, being a tough player.
So what's like your earliest basketball memories? Is it something that you grew up with in the household? Is it something you kind of just discovered on your own growing up in that town and going to watch high school games? How did you get introduced to the game, and what's like your earliest memories?
My earliest memory is, my brother is 3 years older than me, and he was playing basketball at the GRCC, which is the Greater Rumford Community Center, which is basically a YMCA. And my dad was the assistant coach, and my uncle was the head coach. And I remember sitting there and, watching him play. And I was in kindergarten, he was in third grade, and went to all the practices and, went to a couple of the games. And I don't know if we were short on numbers or something happened. They actually put me into the game as a kindergarten kid playing in that third and fourth grade league. And I just kind of, my dad will tell the stories like in the timeouts, like, the coaches are talking and, half the players are tying their shoes, waving to their mom up in the stands. And I guess I was dialed into the coaches, my ears like sonar, like living on every word that the coaches said. So I guess I just had that knack at that age where just I was passionate and loved it, and had an early exposure through, my older brother playing and, my uncle and my dad coaching me.
How quickly did you like really grasp onto it, and like that just became your life, where anytime you weren't in school or anytime you have something going on, like you had a basketball in your hand and you were outside shooting and stuff like that?
And it sounds like a cliche, but that really was it. I dabbled with some other sports. I played some baseball. I'm a Rumford kid, so I kind of played three sports up until maybe like sixth grade. But basketball was really it for me. It didn't take a whole lot. You go find an outdoor court and grab your ball, and no matter what type of sneakers you had, you could go play. So that was kind of my thing, and I was the kid. A lot of people would probably say in my era, like, as you'd see me going down the street and I'd had a ball in my hand. So that was just kind of my thing.
So, firsthand now, having been a coach and having a kid and stuff like that, that nowadays travel basketball is just something that wasn't around back then like it is now. What were you doing? Because I'm guessing you didn't have the same travel opportunities and youth opportunities that your son has had growing up. So what do you remember about in terms of just your basketball development? Like, were you pretty much just stuck in town until you got to high school in terms of traveling and playing other schools?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it was kind of the step for me was, playing up through the community center, and then starting middle school. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot of exposure. There might have been a couple of like community tournaments, like in Farmington, where we're playing against like Jay and Livermore and Wilton or whatever. So there was a few kind of regional tournaments, but I never really left like the River Valley area till, I want to say it was my sixth or seventh grade year was the first year of AAU. And there was this announcement through the school, like this AAU thing is starting throughout Maine, and Maine's going to have a team. And I was like, okay, well, hey, Dad, you think you can get me to the tryout? And he said, sure. And at that point, I don't know if there's a bunch of me around. There was a TJ Cowett down the road that I just found out about then, who was a pretty good player. So, kind of go to this tryout and make this team. And it's like one team from Maine. It's like, we had Nat Clark from Bangor, who I think he was 6'6" in the seventh grade, and he's still 6'6". Like a Chris Funk, like TJ Cowett, and Jason Leclerc and Jay, like a few other guys. I'll miss their names, but that was about 7 or 8 guys. And, we just practiced once in a while, and we went and maybe there was one other team in Maine that we might've beaten. And then we went to this AAU tournament, and that was really it. So I think it kind of grew from the year to year after that, but there was no tournaments every weekend or travel schedule. And, Kelly Flagg, who is, one of my best friends and our assistant coach at Maine United, we joke that, through 6th or 7th grade, they may have played more games than we played all the way through high school. So it's just a different time.
You mentioned a bunch of big names that were on your team. All my county guys that listen, one of the name Chris Funk. What were some of those practices like?
Chris Funk was on. Chris Funk was on that team. It was fun because, I think we were probably all used to dominating kind of like our area. And,
Right.
I wasn't necessarily used to playing against a kid 6'5" or 6'4" and 6'6". And or if they were that big, they could barely walk and chew gum, and all of a sudden you walk into a practice with those guys and kind of feeling people out. And it's not like, and nowadays it's like we play this other team and half of my players have played in some other tournament with them or been at a camp. So there's kind of like this, everybody knows who everybody is and kind of knows their game. And through highlight films and scouting, there's kind of like a, you know, there's a report on who does what. So we kind of walked into this gym and, you know, really nobody knew anybody, had no idea. And then we were like, oh, wow, there's some height, there's some shooting, there's some talent, some coaching here. You know, coming full circle, Lee Sibley was our head coach, and just a great guy. And the coach at Nokomis right now, I'm completely drawing a blank. Anyways, he's coaching two of my players in high school, and I'll come right back to that. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was the first time I saw that much talent, and I was like, wow, we're gonna go dominate. And then you realize, wow, once you get out of Maine, there's some really good players.
How did it make you better as well? I'm guessing like having practiced with those guys, play with those guys, it also inspired you when you got back home to work on your game, kind of knowing like those are the guys you were going to compete with or compete against in high school, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it did. It kind of like it became like, wow, like you knew if you were scoring against those guys or playing with them and competing in practice, it was just like that next level. And, you know, the other part of it, you know, growing up in Rumford and being lucky enough for that community to have a lot of success in basketball. So there's a history there of those 70s teams and from Rumford that were like really good. Like, you know, you think about the teams now that win state championships in Maine and they think that they're good. Well, those Rumford teams in the late 70s actually won the New England championships, which that wouldn't really happen in today's day and age. And so that older generation with their old school play and how good that they were were always opening up gyms and encouraging younger players to play against older players. So I had a chance to play against, you know, guys 4 or 5 years older than me, you know, basically my whole way through. So.
Yeah, and that was going to kind of leads me into my next question. It's a perfect little segue. So, you know, us growing up in small town Maine, we always have that local guy that we kind of look up to, like, oh, I want to be like him when I get to that age. Who was it for you? Like, who were some of the Rumford guys that you looked up to growing up and wanted to be like them once you got to high school?
But it's an easy question to answer for me. It was Matt Gadet. So Matt Gadet was like, he was 5 years older than me. So I never played with him, but he was just like, he was the hometown hero. Like he was a Rumford kid, and he was crazy good. He ended up going to Colby. I'm not sure what offers he had, if he had any, but he should have, because he was an unbelievable player. So he was my guy. So he was 21 at Mountain Valley, and that's why I was 21. And you know, kind of going through there, that was it for me. He was my kind of my high school hero.
And nowadays, these kids that get better in the off season, it's a lot of time with trainers and stuff like that. That's how they get better. That's how they spend their off seasons. What were you doing? Like, realistically, what were you doing to get better? Like, especially like prior to high school, were you just playing? Was just playing like how you got better? Or were we actually working on skills and stuff like that?
Yeah, not like they are today. Not even close. I mean, it was a lot of playground ball, which is kind of lost in today's age. I don't know if it's good or bad with injuries, and I think there's some kind of maybe toughness component to playing outdoors a lot. So, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of skills. I really wasn't doing any strength and conditioning besides some track and field with my brother. My brother was a stud decathlete, so I kind of was into some plyometrics getting into my 8th, 9th grade year. But prior to that, really, you know, some AAU practices here and there, and then just going to the playground. And, you know, when the season occurred. So there wasn't a whole lot of what's happening now.
You mentioned how just playing outdoors, playing on the playground was a way to like kind of toughen you up. You ever feel the need now, like being a coach and having a son, to just be like, you know what, we're going to the playground. I need to take you guys outside so you guys can toughen up a little bit and see what it's all about.
You know, it sounds great now, but we have done that. So we've especially during COVID, our team was lucky enough. We had a private court that we got a chance to get together with, you know, don't tell anybody. I'll get in trouble for that, for getting my guys together during COVID. But we did, and it was beautiful to see. But then when one of them would go down, knowing that I only have 7 players on my roster, so I was a coach the other side of that. It's a lonely bench as it is. But there's something to be said to kind of roll the ball out and not have a ref and not have parents and not have a camera and let them just go figure it out and argue over a call and realize that, in playground ball, defense can only call it. And then there's a character issue. You foul somebody when the game's on the line, do you call it? And maybe there's a shoving match and here and there and let them kind of figure it out. So, I appreciated it on one level. And on the other level, I was certainly hoping nobody got hurt.
Coming into high school, where was the program at? You mentioned all the success that Mountain Valley had or Rumford had in the 70s. When you were getting ready to come into high school, where was the program at?
It was in really, really good shape. So, and I'll screw the years up because as I get older, how the memory goes. But so my junior year was 94. We won the state championship that year. I think they won it in 90. So the first year Mountain Valley merged, we grabbed all the Rumford, Mexico kids, and it was an unbelievable team. I think the second 5 on that team would have started from most teams. And as a matter of fact, Mark Carter was the coach, legendary coach in Maine. And he had this 5 in, 5 out kind of style where, if it was an 8-minute quarter at the 4-minute mark, he just empty his next 5 guys in and kind of had that. And he was able to do it because he was so deep. So they were good for a few years. My freshman year was probably one of the weaker years. So that'd been like 92. And then 93 was my sophomore year. I was still undersized and hadn't quite figured it out yet. And I kind of had this great summer, at Pine Tree Camp, and growing a few inches doesn't hurt, and kind of the confidence of now this kind of being my team as a junior kind of hit. So it wasn't never in bad shape, and it certainly got off to a rock star start with the towns merging.
You mentioned Pine Tree Camp. That's something else that's kind of not what it once was, just because of the evolution of AAU here in Maine and just what kids do in the summertime. But when you went to Pine Tree Camp, you have fond memories of that? I used to go to Pine Tree Camp, and I still look back at that being just a really great time.
Oh, some of the best. I remember, going in, my father ran a small community store he called Ralph's Store in Rumford, and it's kind of supported 3 families, and, $1 had to go a long way. And I remember him showing me a check for like $225 that he paid for me to go to this camp. And he's like, this is a lot. You better make it worth your while. So I know when I was there, I took advantage of those early bird sessions and those late night sessions, and, had a chance that a few guys from Rumford would go, and you'd meet some friends, and there was still some talent coming in from out of state at that time. And, had a chance to, get instruction from some of the great coaches back then, like Doug Roberts. And I mentioned Mark Carter before, and obviously Coach Whitmore, and Coach Meter ran the camp and owned the camp. And Coach Meter's son, Lance, is one of my best friends. So I get to see that family all the time. And great memories of that camp. And I think it kind of was one of the things you could go to, like all the best players went. And even if you were like a B player, you could go and have a good time, and you maybe were in a different league. So great memories of that. And I think it was like one of the first times you get to go be away from your parents for a week too, which is on the social aspect is kind of fun.
Were you a goal-driven individual? Like, would you go into a season and just have a list of things you wanted to accomplish?
I wouldn't say that, probably at some level. I mean, I just know I was so scared of losing the next possession. Like, so for me, I just wanted to compete. And, when I was if we were up by 15, I just always felt that, we might lose this game. And for me, I was just driven to win and win at all costs, whether that means, scoring as much as I need to score, or, being the kind of the quarterback and just kind of hand out passes all day long and just make sure matchups were good. I felt like I was kind of a natural point guard from an early age. And I just felt like when we won, I had a lot to do with it. And when we lost, it was my fault because I was kind of the leader out there. So for me, the goal was not only winning games, but making sure we're winning possessions and, never really looking at the scoreboard and just kind of playing the next play. And I'm not quite sure where I got that from. It was just kind of built into me. And, whether I scored a lot and had a great game and we lost, I wouldn't talk to somebody for 2 days. So winning was kind of like my driving force. So it was never really an individual thing. I think that kind of took care of itself. But it's one thing if you're scoring a lot and your team's losing, maybe you should look at how the team's going. And I was fortunate enough to have really good players around me, able to my game kind of evolved and was able to kind of evolve it from game to game to do what I needed to do to help us win. So to me, the ultimate goal was just to win. You
mentioned your junior year was kind of when it all clicked for you and it all started to come together. I'm guessing by that point you became like a target. People were kind of measuring themselves up against you. But prior to that, like your freshman and sophomore year, was there somebody that you played against or a team that you played against that you just remember getting the best of you and it just ate you up and drove you to be better and to not let that happen again?
Yeah, York was good back then, like my freshman year, sophomore year. I think they knocked us out, Scarborough, because it was really, you have to remember, like Mountain Valley, coming out of that Mountain Valley conference, we kind of always had success in the conference. And I think Winthrop was good and maybe Jay. But for most of the part, we would win 90% of our games in conference. So there was the test came when we would see the Hill Point standings at the end of the year. And then we would, get into the tournament. And then, whether we was playing Scarborough or playing, Greeley or playing, I think York was the one that stung the most my sophomore year, where, they just had some big, I don't really remember anybody's names, but I remember they had some big physical guards, and I was a sophomore and I was a pretty good player, but I just was undersized and I didn't really have that strength. And maybe in the first couple quarters I would, but they would kind of grind me down and wear me down. I just remember I needed to start, working on my strength and luckily I grew and just got stronger. I was the late bloomer. I think I was maybe 5'9" my sophomore year. So thank goodness, I don't know what happened, but thank goodness I grew between my sophomore and my junior year. But nobody in particular, Tom, I remember losing and remember the season being over, and I remember being depressed for a week afterwards and not wanting to talk to anybody. So, yeah.
We're going to get to your junior year, which was the state championship year, but tournament memories prior to that run to a state championship. So you guys are like Western Northern Maine, but you guys played the tournament down south, right? You guys had to go way down south for your games.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was the Augusta Civic Center for us.
Okay, so it wasn't too far.
Yeah, no. That was kind of like that. Or those bus rides from Rumford to the Augusta Civic Center were always, you always had anxiety. You always were excited because, back then, whether we were expected to win or not, I mean, the town would shut down and the Mountain Valley crowd would blanket the whole side of it. So I just remember the anticipation of going out there and then getting into my junior year. Like I remember like getting off the bus and, walking past the court, going into change. And we got there to like a standing ovation. It was amazing. Like they were letting our fans in before we were getting to the game. And as we were walking through, the place was going nuts. And it was all the Milltown fans that just supported us. And it was like, we had another person on the court because that was really it. I mean, we thought we brought a lot of pride to the area. And I think we were great for the community and in the younger generation. And Coach Colbris did a lot of good things with us in the community, with, restaurants taking care of us. And, for us Rumford kids, when we go into a restaurant, it's free. I mean, it's like Disney World for most people. So we were eating it up and we thought we were celebrities and it was just special,
Yeah. Growing up, did you go to tournament games? Like, was that something you aspired to do? Like, man, I can't wait to play in the Augusta Civic Center. I can't wait to play in tournament games.
Oh, yeah, all the time. I mean, we would, even before the tournament, I mean, when that Matt Cadet's senior year and my 8th grade year, I mean, it was like when Mountain Valley was playing on Friday night, we're getting there at the JV game, we're going to sit right behind the bench and we're going to hand them water and we're going to listen into the timeouts. And that was kind of like my group that ended up being that 94 championship team. So when they went, yeah, I mean, even if I didn't like basketball, I mean, you were going, your mom and dad were going, and unless you had a babysitter that didn't like basketball, which that wasn't the case, like the whole town would go. So
94 was your year you guys marched to the state championship game. Leading up to it, like that entire season, was there someone you kind of compared yourself against? Were you looking in the newspaper, looking at scores, seeing what this person did, seeing what that person did? Like, was there someone you kind of you wanted to be better than, that you kind of compared yourself to?
I wouldn't say better than, just because we're different players, but it was TJ. I mean, TJ was, he was like the freak that Maine hadn't really seen to that point. I mean, you had 6'6", 6'7" guys that could dominate. You had good guards like myself that could dominate, but you didn't really have that inside out force who could basically carry a team through quarters and defensively and rebound. And I remember a couple of the games, talking with him, and, if their guards were messing up, like he would single-handedly rebound the ball and go break the press himself. So he was always a tough matchup. So I just think that year, we knew that was the game. Like that was the team. And Lisbon was really good that year. They actually beat us in the season opener on the road. And they had some really good players. But it was really TJ that year, and he was just so good, and we schemed to kind of make sure that we kind of we beat them both times we played, but it certainly was impressive, thinking about how good he was and how much we had to do to kind of minimize him on the court. So I wouldn't say I was just trying to get better than him. Again, it all came down to how do we win, how do we beat them.
So for those of us that have not had the opportunity to go to a Mountain Valley home game, what kind of home crowd was it like when Winthrop came to town? I'm guessing that was probably the game that most people circled on the schedule and wanted to come out and see. So what do you remember most about that environment? Like, does Mountain Valley have some nasty fans? Were you guys pretty rude?
They were brutally honest with the other team, what they thought. I mean, there was no guesswork. There was like the brick bunch up in the left-hand corner, which was like the rowdy football students that didn't play basketball. A bunch of my friends were up there, and when the other team would shoot free throws, they'd open up their newspapers. They'd have their chants. And when Winthrop would come into town, I mean, you'd have to get there an hour before the JV game started. And one of my memories was we were in the locker room getting ready to go out, and like the locker room has its own separate like emergency entrance where people were banging on the door, and we were trying to ignore it. And Coach Colbert got pissed off, and he banged open the door, and it was like a few of his former players that knew, that had just graduated a couple of years ago that wanted to get into the game that couldn't because the fire marshal had shut the game off at a certain point. And normally he would have flipped out and told them to get out of here. But he invited them in and just said, "Hey, wait till we go out before you sneak out into the gym." So he let his former players come in. So that was kind of cool. So,
how about whenever you guys went on the road, did you get any hostile crowds? Like, I'm guessing you were the target of some of these opposing schools when you hit the road.
We did, we certainly did. It was exciting, and for the first few minutes, the crowd was really, really loud. And then I don't have to tell you what the scoreboard does to some of those rowdy crowds, so. And that was early on. And I think by the second time around, we were kind of getting we were like this team that was kind of steamrolling, and, what's going on up in Western Maine of this Mountain Valley team. And, we actually started to hear a few cheers on the road and people rooting for us and coming from other communities to kind of watch us play. So we were, we could have been playing at Telestar, which typically draws, 15 people because everybody skis up there, but the gym would be packed from just people coming to watch us play.
That March the 94 state championship game, did you guys have any close calls, or would you guys just dominate the whole way through?
The 94. Yeah, we did. We like I said, we lost the season opener. We had about a week between that and our next game. And I remember it because I don't even think we touched a ball that week. I think we ran the entire week of practice. And then I remember us all saying, "Hey, let's not lose again." And we kind of ran the table from there. but I think it was not the Western Maine finals, but the Western Maine semifinals. We got into a 1 or 2 possession game with Greeley, who had a really good team. We got down early. We missed some shots early. We didn't really quite have it going. And we somehow found a way to kind of fight back and win that game. And then I think we won the Western Maine finals by quite a bit. But that second game to kind of get there was by far the closest on that run.
And then you got the opportunity to play in the Bangor Auditorium. So for you, what would I mean, we'll talk about what happened in that game. For those that don't know, we'll get into it in a second. But leading up to it, like as a kid, did you ever have dreams about playing in the auditorium?
I did, absolutely, because that's where the Mountain Valley boys won their game. So that 90 team. So, but being in Western Maine and the Rumford area, the only way that you would be able to play there or get there was to get to a state championship. So the Augusta Civic Center was one thing, and then that was kind of like our comfortable, okay, that's huge. And then going to the Bangor Auditorium was unreal. So yeah, no, we were excited to go play there in front of that crowd and that bigger gym and that atmosphere for sure.
And you had a decent game. For those that don't know, you set the all-time record for most points in a state championship game. Correct me if I'm wrong. 53, is that right?
That's the number.
So what was it about Bangor? Were you just mad and were you just in a zone that game, or was it just a great gym and just a great scorer's gym? What was it for you?
I think it was one of those games where you kind of just like black out and it's like a blur where, you put in all this work and you work to get here and you take all those shots and you put in all the time and it just kind of pays you back. But Camden Rockport was a really good team. Clearly that program is incredible. I mean, it's got to be, if you name one of the best basketball programs in Maine over the last 20 years with what Coach Hart has done, I mean, they've got to be there. So right. They had Dale Landreth, who ended up being a Division I player, some really, really good players, good team ball, and they were getting a lot of hype. And, I think at the time people still didn't believe that this Mill team could come in here and win a state championship, and I do remember one thing. I think I missed my first 5 or 6 shots, which I try to use as a lesson to my players, like keep it going. So it didn't start off great. And then the first one kind of went down. And, from there, it was just like, okay, let's roll. And good things started to happen.
Yeah, for those that haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. You can go watch that game if you want to see what 53 points in a state championship looks like. It's on the tube. How does Rumford celebrate a state championship? What did you guys do when you guys came home with the gold ball?
Yeah, we ended up spending the night up there. It was a weird night because it was a snowstorm. So I think most of the town ended up spending the night up there. And then, the next week we had like spaghetti suppers and feeds with the community. We'd go speak with the elementary schools, and there was a parade going through downtown by the community center where we all kind of grew up playing. It was kind of a big deal. And, Coach Cobras is a big community member there. And he kind of knew what that meant to the community. So he was tough on us during the year, and kind of once we won that, it was almost like he was breathing a little bit, and it kind of let us enjoy it. And it certainly was a lot of fun, and it's something that myself and some of my teammates that talk about all the time.
And you decided to not come back from your senior year and decided to go to MCI. So what was the decision process behind that?
It was just a simple, what's my best way to get to college and get a scholarship and try to achieve my goals. And really there was no set plan. Like after I graduated, after that championship game, it wasn't like I'm going to MCI. That was it for me. I had no idea. My AAU team, this would have been like the 3rd or 4th year AAU was happening. We actually scrimmaged against at MCI and Coach Good's team, and we played them twice. And the first game, and Coach Good will tell you this, the first game we just absolutely get annihilated. Like we walked in, and here I think we're gonna go play MCI, some prep team, and I'm like, well, who cares? I mean, we've got TJ Cowat, we've got myself, we've got Corey Zimmerman, we've got Dale Landreth, we've got Josh Nash who played at me. I'm like, and I don't even know if we scored in the first half. I mean, it was like one of those complete ass whippings, and then. We started to kind of figure it out, and then we actually ended up playing them again a few months later. And I remember having a really, really good game against one of their guards that was ended up going to Purdue. And I remember Coach Good coming up to me and just saying, hey, like, he's not one to hand out compliments, but what he would just said is like, do you understand how much better you got from when you played against him 3 weeks ago till now after getting your ass kicked? And he probably used a bunch more adjectives than that. And he just kind of learning a little bit more about the program and what they were about and who he was and how he treated his players and kind of the toughness and the discipline that he brought to the table. So at the time with my parents, it was just like, okay, stay in Rumford. It's easy. It's comfortable. We might be able to get a look at Maine, New Hampshire. Rumford's, it's a mill town. Maybe I get complacent. Maybe, after that 53-point game, stuff goes to my head, and I just said to myself, if you really want something, you've got to put yourself out there and make it uncomfortable. And if anybody knows Coach Good, if you want to get uncomfortable in a hurry, you go sign up and play for one of his teams. So I just thought and knew that was the right thing, that A, to kind of move on and go challenge myself, and B, be coached by somebody that has put that many players in Division I and into the NBA, and also with the discipline and hold me accountable on a daily, or actually on a minute basis. So, he's one of my best friends to this day. And I just look back and think about what a great decision it was, because it's kind of how I've structured my business and my game and how I coach, and some of the between him and Coach Good and Coach G, it's just like Coach Cobras, he just kind of was like that father figure that really disciplined, that you realize that there's many forms of love, and that was like a real dose of tough love. And sometimes you tell, I say this all the time, you tell people, your best friends tell you things you don't want to hear. And he just cared that much that it didn't matter if we were up by 30. If you weren't giving everything you had, he was going to get up and down you every second, because he knows what your potential is, and he wasn't going to accept anything less than that. So just kind of a big time life lesson that ended up paying off. So I didn't know I was going to get all of that at the time, but I just knew that it was going to be hard. I was going to play against good players, and I was going to be held accountable. And I knew for sure he wasn't going to let my head get too big.
Yeah, you mentioned good players, and I find it shocking that a lot of these younger kids now have no idea what MCI prep was and the people that went through there. So it's always funny to just start rattling off the names of people that have been through that program. When you were going there, who was already there, or who'd you play with?
So we had two parade All-Americans my year. We had Kelly Taylor, who went to Pitt, and we had Luther Clay that ended up going to Purdue and transferred to Rhode Island. Llewellyn Cole went to Providence. Miles Tarver started in the national championship game 3 years later from Minnesota. Isaiah Epps was a player at UNLV. Lenny Brown was a 3-year starter at Xavier, and that was just my team.
Right.
So, and the year before it was, and I'm forgetting some of the names. As I said, I'm getting old here, but Chad Austin and Brad Miller both went to Purdue. Brad Miller had a 15-year NBA career. So those were the guys that I played against my junior year AAU year to come there for my senior year. So, I mean, the list goes on. I mean, Katina Mobley played there. You can look them up, but there's got to be a dozen or so solid NBA players. And Sam Cassell was probably one of the early big names that people mention.
Yeah. And Karan Butler,
obviously, Karan Butler, DeMar Johnson. Yeah. We can keep going. The kid Eric Barkley that went to St. John's. I had 3 kids on my team that didn't even get a look that would have been first team All-State Maine. It's just another level. And it's just too bad that program doesn't exist. So Maine kids can kind of see, the size and the speed and the dedication and how hard you have to play on every possession. I think that's what's kind of lost now a little bit. It's like through the AAU and through how everything goes, there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of wanting to get kids on their program. But I think that the message is lost is how hard you have to play on every possession, how tough you have to be. And toughness isn't pushing somebody or threatening to beat somebody up. I mean, making those tough plays, like bodying up, squaring up, being strong, just all that stuff on every single possession is really the difference maker. And there's not that much difference between an average D1 kid and an average D2 kid. And it's those little toughness things that you could see if you want to see a max good MCI team play. A lot of people would talk about how, wow, they had 9 dunks, but the basketball guys would be like, did you see how he guarded him 94 feet and turned him 10 times? Like that stuff is what I wish I could bring my kids to go see.
You mentioned part of the reason to go to MCI was to help you reach your basketball goals. So at what point were you thinking Division I? Was that something that you set out to accomplish at a younger age, or is that something that kind of came later?
Yeah, it really came, during that junior year. My sophomore year, I was good. I was a really good player, a young player, but I mean, you see it all the time. There's good young players that just don't develop, or, they get complacent. And, it was really that year where, it was, and I know I was good from an early age. I mean, but being good from Rumford doesn't necessarily mean that you're good for Boston. So I had a passion, and I knew I had a chance if I worked. But if I don't grow the 3 inches, who knows what happens? If I don't go to MCI, who knows what happens? I think I probably end up Division I if I didn't go to MCI. But certainly it doesn't help when, there must have been 150 Division I coaches come through the gym during the fall pickup season. So it wasn't like I knew, like in an early age, like there's players that that they're going to be D1 because, let's be honest, us 5'11" to 6'2" guards, I mean, we're a dime a dozen. So you better be special at that height and size. So I was pretty realistic with that. And, getting to MCI with the exposure they brought, and obviously the daily practices, playing against Kelly Taylor every day in practice is, you can't help but be better.
So that 1 year at MCI, what's the biggest thing you learned during that 1 year at MCI, and how did you, or what area did you improve upon the most during that 1 year at MCI?
I think it helped me to become an all-around player. I just, like, that was the area of my game. I was kind of known as a scorer coming out. I could always pass, but I just felt like my ability to pass, and then sometimes, I could score whenever I wanted to. So I realized in a hurry, and through working for the coach Good, like my game to go to that next level would be like a coach's dream. Like you gotta be able to make everybody else better. So I think just being able to kind of create and see the floor and snap the ball up and just become more of a general type player where, sure, I can score some, but just making that right click pass, or just running the team, and just kind of getting guys that are really good shooters open looks, and creating opportunities for really, really good players. Because, it wasn't like I was, some crazy drive the lane, dunk on people type athlete. So I kind of had to find my way that way. So I would say that's kind of how I developed, more into a complete player, and kind of helped me define from a scorer into like that utility player. And then just as I mentioned before, just the consistent hard work and never taking a play off, and how important that next play is, and how tough and how much you have to want it, because everybody wants it. I mean, everybody thinks that they want it, and then you got to go out and prove it. Not just a couple games, a couple tournaments, a couple possessions. It's like every single possession you've got to be dialed in. And I think that's kind of the message that was kind of brought.
So MCI paid off because you wound up going to Boston College. How'd you narrow down to Boston College?
Boston College was great. I got recruited by a lot of schools. BC was in the Big East at the time. It was a great conference. It was a couple hours, 3 hours from my hometown. So I was closer to my family, obviously great academically. Had a really great experience there. I mean, we won the Big East Championship my sophomore year, 2 NCAA tournaments, won a game each year. And just, playing in those arenas and flying on private jets, and kind of having that whole side of big time Division I basketball was really cool. And obviously played against some bunch of NBA guys, and met some really great friends, and had a good time at BC for a couple of years.
Yeah, and also, I mean, not only did you get to have some great memories in the Maine high school basketball tournament, you got to play in some Big East tournament games in the Garden. Now, I'm a Big East guy. Big East tournament week is one of my favorite weeks all year long. Do you have any Big East tournament memories? I mean, obviously, winning has got to be up there. But I mean, can you just, for those that will never, for us that will never get that chance to play in the Garden, play in the biggest
team. I played in a lot of great arenas too. I mean, we playing at Syracuse is cool, and but Madison Square Garden is nothing like it. I mean, because I was a big basketball college fan too growing up, so. Being in those locker room and seeing those pictures of all of the NBA guys and all the boxers and all the entertainers that have performed there, and just taking the back entrance with the bus in and the cargo elevator up, and just being behind the scenes and kind of coming out in the tunnel, and you look up and you see the scoreboard, and it's just just an amazing experience. And then you look on the other side of the court, and I mean, who are you playing? You're playing like Villanova or Georgetown, and Allen Iverson's over there, so just a really, really, lucky and unique experience. So that's definitely a magical place. That's for sure.
And then decided to come back to Maine after a couple years of Boston College. What was the toughest part about being at Boston College? Because I'm guessing it's probably the first time since you were tiny, where you had to fight for playing time, earn a role, have a spot. Like, what was the toughest part about being there?
That was it. It was the inconsistency of playing. And it takes a special player, and I can appreciate that, because I have a couple on my team where you're not starting, but you're very, very talented, and you get a limited opportunity to go in and show what you do. And being yanked out of the game and trying to come back into the game and get into the flow, it's really tough to find rhythm. And so those 6 Men of the Year awards that people give out, I mean, that's a special player that can adapt and do that for sure. I just really couldn't get my arms around it. I feel like it was rare that I could get into a flow. Felt like my sophomore year, the starting point guard was academically ineligible, and I finally had a chance to play like 5 or 6 games and play meaningful 25, 30, 35 minutes. And I felt like my numbers and our winning percentage and what I was bringing was enough to kind of solidify. But in the coach's eyes, it just wasn't there. So I just kind of lost a little bit of confidence at that point. And obviously still head up, fighting, doing everything I can to help the team win. But it was always in the back of my mind. Am I the one? Can I get Maine to the NCAA tournament? I mean, is that realistic? And then, when Jim O'Brien decided to go to Ohio State, and I was thinking about going to Rhode Island, and the team kind of broke up, I put my transfer request in. It was granted, and then when I met Coach G, it just made sense. It was just I felt like that was it. And then, when I got to Maine, and I'm a Maine kid at heart, I'm a Mill kid, and wearing Maine across the front of my chest, I didn't take lightly. I love that I was a Maine kid. So, that was kind of what was exciting about that opportunity. I would have been fine and great to stay at BC. I probably would have started the next couple of years, but I felt like, for me and for what Maine basketball has done for me, I thought that I could kind of, give him an attaboy and maybe try to get him into the dance.
So when you transferred back, you had to sit out a year, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like? Probably the first time in your life where no basketball for a whole year. Did it drive you nuts? I mean, obviously you practiced, but not being able to play in games, it had to have been tough.
Yeah. No, it wasn't as tough as you would think. Nate Fox transferred with me, one of my best friends who tragically died, but we had a chance to do it together. So I was in it with somebody else. So it wasn't just me, and the team would be going on the road and I would be by myself. So I like, my brother was with me. So we kind of did this thing together, and, we wanted to put on some size, and we wanted to, increase our vertical. So the strength and conditioning program up there was lights out. And, I missed playing, but I got enough. I knew my time was coming, and I knew there was some younger players on that team that needed to develop a little bit and get some minutes that could help us. And you could kind of see the pieces come together in the puzzle just based on our practices.
And you guys had some really good squads. I mean, there probably hasn't been teams like that since. So what made you guys so good? And what was the environment like in Maine at that time? Because the girls program is what it is. You guys were good. What do you remember most from that time?
I remember it being really quiet at the games. And I remember, Cindy and Amy and those teams filling the place up. And there was this buzz kind of going around and some articles in the paper. But, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, because I had been gone out of high school. I had a solid career at BC, but it wasn't like I was in the paper every day. So I was kind of off the radar. And, I think it was our first game against Hampton, Virginia. I mean, I don't think we sold it out, but it was one of the largest crowd Maine's ever had. So it was exciting to kind of start to win and start to kind of share some of the headlines and some of the media with the girls team and kind of get some excitement back into the Maine men's side of the game. So
senior year, you guys have 24 victories, which is a school record. All Biggie or All American East first team. So ended your playing days on a good note. Looking back though on all the basketball years, is there something you regret, something that you wish you could have accomplished that you didn't?
Yeah, it would have been, that my broken wrist in my senior year. That team was special. I think that was the year that Maine should have been in the NCAA tournament, and that was a really good America East that year. I mean, Hofstra was good. Jay Wright was coaching Hofstra with Speedy Claxton, who was an NBA guy, and Mike Bray was at Delaware, and you ask a lot of those guys, and we were probably the favorite to win that thing. And, we're playing Hartford in like the semifinals, and weird, awkward play. I've got a breakaway and I just go up, and I don't know if I was going to dunk or what I was going to do, but the kid kind of clipped my leg a little bit and I kind of came down awkward on my hand. And as soon as I landed, I was like, oh no. And that was it. I broke my wrist. And it was just like, to gum that far and to have it be that way. And, most coaches will tell you I was a really good player, but more importantly, like your point guard, it's tough. It's tough to win when your point guard goes out. So, we ended up losing the next game. But that was it. If I had a take back, I wish I would have never had that steal and that breakaway, because I would have loved to try to finish off what the goal was that Coach G and I had talked about the day that he came to BC was getting Maine to the tournament. So that's my one. And obviously I would have done a lot of things different along the way, but that's the one that really, really sticks out to me, where I wish that could have come true, just because who knows, now people see us in the NCAA tournament. Maybe that helps the program. Maybe we get a couple more recruits because they see us there, and maybe we go shock the world and win a game. You never know. So that was kind of like one of those bad luck, unfortunate incidents where a lot of hard work went into getting to that point, and to have it happen that way was kind of a stinger. So that's the one that burns a little bit.
So first 23 years of your life, it's all basketball, just giving everything to basketball. By the time you're done and you guys lose in that game, are you burnt out? Are you done with basketball, or was it always, I want to keep playing, I want to keep going?
I was pretty much burnt out. I dabbled with coaching a little bit, and I just, would play in practice. So I'd kind of get that fulfillment of playing a little bit. I'd run some of the scout teams. I played overseas, and I just had some tired legs, and I was kind of ready to kind of move on from there.
So now getting back into basketball now, or you have been for a little bit. You mentioned getting into coaching when your son hit kindergarten, and just wanted him to see you go through it the right way. So tell us how you got this whole Maine United thing going. When is the thought process to start that up, and what can you say about it? I mean, there's a ton of talented kids that are coming up through it. Go ahead and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, it kind of just started organically. There was no goal of me trying to coach a group of kids. It just kind of all fell into place, and it started with me bringing Kate into Blue Wave for a summer league program, and there was some good coaches and some good kids, and saw kind of a few unique kids and some of the drills they were doing, and I just thought I could really help them, and ended up doing a couple clinics and doing a couple of things. And I had a couple of parents kind of like tap me on the shoulder and be like, we would love to kind of put something together here. And I mentioned Leo and Sammy before. and Caden kind of started it for the Southern Maine kids that are on Maine United now. And, we kind of had the guards, and there was some noise coming from Northern Maine about Cooper, and nobody had really seen him play, because back then he was playing like 3 grades older. And then people kind of started to kind of talk about him, and I started asking a couple of questions, and come to find out, Cooper's mom, Kelly, and I went to college together and are good friends, and we had just lost our way. And she had heard rumors of my guards down here. And I went to go see Cooper play, and we went to lunch, and, it was kind of a commitment, because, they're from Newport. We're kind of from the Portland area. How do we make this work? And what's this going to look like realistically, as much as this is probably a great fit? And I said, I really don't know, but let's get them all together on a weekend, and let's go play, and let me put them through one of my practices. And that's when I met Ace, who was kind of Cooper's brother at the time, that didn't really have a passion for basketball. He just happened to be huge and be aggressive. And so we did it, and we added a couple pieces to the puzzle. And, it just kind of made sense, where the parents are kind of like family, and the players fit into a unique role together, and truly have become brothers. And I didn't expect this to happen. And it's probably a rare thing where AAU kids really want to play for each other, and parents are truly rooting for everybody on the floor, not just their own kids. So, the opportunity came to kind of break away from Blue Wave and start Maine United, and making sure, every dollar went right into our kids, because, it's expensive, and the travel, and finding gym space, and, the hours of going up and down 95 between us taking turns with the Southern Maine kids going up to Corinna to practice, and Newport, and them coming this way. And, it was so special to watch them play, and watch them kind of grasp what Kelly and I were talking about, of some of the things that we talked about earlier, about the toughness, and making each other better, and earning respect, and all of that stuff. And we wouldn't have it any other way, how this team kind of came together. But it definitely wasn't scripted. It was more like a natural thing. And so, yeah, that's how that basically started.
And you and Kelly both have the UMaine experience. You guys played at a high level. How does that benefit these kids? Like, what's the Maine United way? Like, what do you preach?
It basically, we're defense first. We're like an old school. Kelly and I are like an old school couple, where we understand how hard it is to get to that next level, and these parents and these kids absolutely want it, and they're wanting to be pushed, and the parents are allowing us to push them, and not make excuses. And it's team first, and then the individual will kind of shine through. So, that's kind of our message. Kelly and I bring Kelly had Joanne coaching her, and we've talked about my coaches earlier. We kind of bring all that together. And it's kind of like a little bit of an old school mentality, like that late 80s Celtics team of people have roles, and this is what we do, and we win, and we play together, and we earn respect from our teammates on every possession by playing hard, and not giving up, and not taking bad shots, and always giving up the good shot for the great shot, and just kind of the lessons that we've learned that have helped us, that we're able to be a matter of fact with them. There's no sugarcoating. They're all at that level where they want it. They all have the ability to get to that next level. And it's unique, because I can tell you, I wouldn't be able to coach most kids how I coach these kids, because they're like my sons. And I would get fired probably from a varsity job, because I'm just passionate, and I know what they can do. And I hold them accountable, just like my coaches hold me accountable, and just like Kelly's coaches held her accountable. And she's a big part too. She's kind of with the good cop, bad cop on different times. And she has a massive basketball IQ. She's been recruited. She knows what it takes. And she's able to kind of give that perspective. And, coming from her, she's able to get the message across in different ways than I can. And it just works just like teammates, just like the kids are.
Tell me what the feeling's like. You talked about earlier when you were coming up playing AAU. and going out of state and just being like, wow, like there's some good teams out there. There's a lot of talent out there. What's it like now having a team, being able to go out of state and being able to be from Maine and compete out of state with the kids you got?
It's special. And at early, the first year or two, we kind of snuck up on people, right? They'd see, we're playing Maine team on the schedule and they're thinking they're going to get blown out, but that kind of changed in a hurry. And, I think we did a pretty good job, and a credit to the kids of we've kind of prepared them for that. Like we really ever played in our own age group in Northern New England. We've always played at least one level up, one age group up, if not two, because we were fortunate to have the size and we have skill. And even though we may be younger and not developed yet, they have the heart and they play with that chip on their shoulder. So they're always going to compete. And so we've kind of prepped them for that. And it's kind of fun because after a while, when we go to these tournaments, we kind of have a little bit of a cult following where some of these teams that may have more individual talent are asking to come to our games and watch us play the way that we play and how we play together. And that may sound like a, kind of like, oh, is that really happening? But no, we've actually, that's been asked a bunch of times because with COVID, you're supposed to leave the gym after your game. And then, when it's your turn to play, you come back into the game, or we're finding out, we look behind us and there's like 5 teams watching us play and players listening in and seeing how we do things together. Now we have tremendous talent, but obviously, we're stronger as a pack. And I think that's kind of gotten around the circuit where an AAU team can play together and they can win together, because at the end of the day, Tom, I mean, a coach wants to obviously see how talented you are, but can you be talented in a system? Like, can you be talented in your role, or do you need to take 30 shots a game to be effective? And I think we've kind of established that, like, some games, Leo didn't even score and he might've been our best player. And some games he had 20 and I thought he had an okay game. So I think that, like, we've kind of taught them, winning first and doing what the team needs. And then as the coaches start to recruit them, they're going to really appreciate the fact that, wow, I do need a kid like that in my system. So, getting back to your original point, and sorry, I'm going to keep going off because I love talking about them. It certainly is a lot of fun. It's a lot of rowdy gyms, as you can imagine, in some of the places that we've played in Philadelphia and DC and all over the country, where the first 5 minutes of the game, the other team's parents think it's the refs, and oh my God, why are we losing to Maine? And well, next thing I know, at halftime, they're done talking. So, and that really gives me satisfaction.
So what's the plan? We talked about off the top how you're down in Florida now. Your son is enrolled at Rumford. This group of kids would be incoming freshmen here heading into this school year. You're going to see them through all the way through high school, or are things that get more difficult with you being in Florida now?
Yeah, well, me being in Florida, but more so it changes, right? So, I've been fortunate enough to have them basically year round all the way up through 8th grade. So they've played middle school some, and with COVID, there was a kind of a middle school season and we were doing our own thing. And but now that they're all going to be impact freshmen, it changes, right? So like, I'm not going to be able to grab them in the wintertime because they're going to be on their varsity team and they have that now, renewed commitment. So AAU kind of changes in general. But we have agreed to we're going to definitely play this spring together. We're going to get together with a couple tournaments. We got a couple of announcements coming that are going to be pretty special with the league that this Maine United team is qualified to play in. And but yeah, we're going to play a more national circuit. We're going to parachute in and play in different tournaments across the country. So by their success that they've had in their ratings and other tournament coordinators seeing us play and vouching for us, and college coaches wanting to kind of see us play, it's been a nice way to kind of get invites into some of these larger events. So that's we're not going to play as much local. We're going to try to get a couple tournaments in there because I know we have a nice following in Maine, but unfortunately, a lot of it is going to be, down the East Coast. And so, yeah, and I'll just go back to real quick. Another thing too is we talked about a lot of games early on, and the thing that we've done the last 2 years is we haven't tournamented them to death. Like, right. So we haven't played every single weekend, and people be like, oh, when you guys playing? And we've definitely spent a lot of time on their fundamentals and on their individual breakdowns and kind of breaking down our offense in a 3-on-3 type setting. And you can get way more out of a hard practice, you know, especially our practices, than you can playing 6 games on a weekend just to win some trophy. So we've kind of limited that the last couple of years, which has kind of saved our legs. We've taught the fundamentals, and we really kind of prioritize and emphasize some of the larger tournaments that are actually meaningful, versus, you know, you lose a tournament one weekend, you can say, oh, well, we're playing again next weekend. Oh, we're playing again next weekend. So they can kind of get monotonous into the way that these kids can think. So I think we've done a pretty good job on the parent side and the coaching side, and the kids embracing it, like understanding, like, yeah, practice isn't fun, but when you want to get to where you want to get to, it's a necessary means, and let's value some of these tournaments. So we won't play as many as other AAU teams, but the ones we play will be meaningful, and we'll still be getting our work in.
It sounds like to me like you guys are going about it the right way. In my opinion, that sounds how it should be right there.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and they're too good. They're just, you know, I hate to have an injury because they have 4 games on a Sunday, and it's just they're to that level now. And I know you haven't seen us play live, but when you come to watch us play this year, you just see how hard we play, and we play the right way, and it takes a toll on you and the size of the kids that we're playing against. So there's a lot to be learned from practice, a lot more. Games are great. You need them for sure. But, you know, going and beating somebody by 30 points, or us playing 3-on-3 up in Nokomis, I mean, we can get a heck of a lot better up there.
Is this going to lead to more coaching down the road? Like once your son kind of goes through it and everyone kind of moves through here and gets to college, you see some more coaching down the road for you?
No.
This is it.
You know, my goal, you know, unless I help out my daughter's team here or there, and I don't coach her that much because she's smarter than I am, and she'll tell you that. We butt heads too much, but I'm excited to kind of see this thing through this next year, and then just help them and see where they go into college, and watch this team kind of go and parachute around the country and watch them all play. Hopefully, I mean, that would be the ultimate goal, and enjoy it. So this is it for me.
So the Bedard name is held in high regard here in Maine high school basketball, in the circle around here. Give some love to your son. We're not going to get a chance to see Caden play this year because he's down there in Florida, but for the fans out there that know the Bedard family name, can you break down Caden's game for us? Give us a little scouting report on your son.
Yeah, no, he's our heartbeat. You know, he's our point. He's a big, strong, athletic guard. He gets us into our offense. He always guards the other team's best player. I mean, he locks people's down. He rebounds the ball. He brings that toughness to us. He'll set a hard screen. He knows how to play. He's a streaky scorer. He's a pass-first guard that loves to play defense. So if you're a good offensive player, I mean, you want to pick him first. So he's grown a ton. He's really worked on the strength and conditioning down here. So he's been going at it hard for 6 weeks. 3 times a week he has double sessions. So he's really putting in the work. And I'm kind of excited to sit back and watch his progression as he kind of takes his game to that next level, and he's playing against unbelievable players down here. So, you know, kudos to him, and good for him for the years of, you know, me being dad and coach, right? I mean, there's a lot of us out there, and that's not an easy situation. So I think just by natural, being his dad, of course, I'm probably a little tougher on him. So this year of not coaching him and watching him do his thing is special for us. And I'm really, really enjoying it. And, but yeah, he's a big, strong stud athletic guard. So, I don't want him to hopefully hear this because, I don't want him to think that he can stop working, but
So you said, is there a 0% chance? Can we just say there's a 0% chance that you guys move back to Rumford for his senior year and he rocks the number 21 and leads Mountain Valley to another state championship? Is there a 0% chance of that?
Nothing zero. But who knows? Who knows? Although, no, I don't think.
So we've covered it all. We talked about the upbringing. We talked about high school, college, and what you're doing now. Is there anything we missed before we get up out of here? Is there anyone else we got to give love to before we go?
Well, I'll just talk about, and they get a lot of credit. I'll just talk about a few of the other players on the team. I mean, they're a talented group, and what's special about them is they all kind of give up something to make our team better, which that's kind of the character that they have. So we know about Cooper and Ace. The other person I want to mention, Dawson Townsend, who's probably going to start for Nokomis as a freshman, is an unbelievable shooter, great player, comes off the bench for us, and he's that unique player that's not an easy role, right? Coming off the bench, we talked about that with me being at BC, and Leo McNabb and Sammy Nizama are going to get a ton of minutes at Cheverus, I would hope, and Crady Dixon's over in Wyndham, who's going to be an impact player there. And Gabe is at Mesalonsky, and he's going to be a good player. And so I'm excited to follow them and see how they kind of transition from this AAU into their freshman year and the impact they'll have as freshmen, because typically that doesn't happen, right? But I'm assuming there's going to be a bunch of noise out there from this group, and I'm excited to kind of log on and watch all their games and follow them. So.
Yep, I had a chance to see Dawson a couple months ago in an open gym, and I was impressed with him. So I know I'm going to be heading south to catch some Nokomis games this winter. I'm anxious to see that group of guys and see what they can do as freshmen. It's going to be fun to see.
Yeah, I think you need to get to the gym early if you want to get into a Nokomis game.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm hoping that I can get there early enough and get some seats in there.
Well, with this podcast and your celebrity status now, you should be all set.
I'm hoping I get like media credentials or something like that. Maybe I'll get like media passes, and that'll be my way to get in there. That's what I'm hoping, at least.
Well, you can reach out to Kelly. If anybody can make it happen, it's her.
There we go. I got one question to ask you here before we get up out of here. How long? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but this is just my thought process. I think we're going to see Cooper head down there too at some point. Is Cooper on his way to Mount Bird? Can we break any news? I don't really know what's going on, but that's my hunch. I don't think he's going to be in Maine for very long. Do you know anything?
I don't know the answer to that. I can say that nothing is certain. I think that, the Flags have a great plan where they're really going to enjoy this year and watch him play in his hometown. The community has been great for that family. They've been great to the community. Their older brother's a senior. He's a talent that this state has never seen before, and I'm not sure if they ever will. I selfishly, for that community, I'd love to see him stay there. But I think the way his God-given abilities and his body and his gift for this game, I think his path is outside of there. And I don't know where it is, but it's someplace where, I see him playing on TV quite a bit down the road, as long as he stays hungry and focused and really wants it, which I can't imagine not. I've never seen a player as competitive as him with his skill set. So I'm not going to say he's coming to Montbird. I don't know where he's going. I know you'll hear a lot of rumors because my phone blows up. Everybody's phone is blowing up. Every prep school would love to have him. So there's going to be a lot of pressure. And I'd like to just kind of, hopefully he can kind of shield that off, and Kelly and Ralph do a great job of doing that, and let him enjoy this year and kind of see what he can do with that community and his two brothers for the year, and really enjoy it, and then, take it from there. But my guess is, his path is someplace really, really special, and it's probably south of Newport.
I have the perfect solution for everyone. This is what we're going to do. You come back, revitalize the MCI program, make it what it once was, bring Cooper there. You can bring all your boys there, actually. We'll revitalize MCI. Cooper can stay here, stick with the prep thing, and then go on to big things after that.
That is an interesting scenario. I don't know if it's possible. We need to talk to the Chinquette family and have them start that program and fund that thing. And because they're a Pittsfield family that has been great for MCI, and they were awesome when I was there. That would make a lot of people happy.
Maybe we'll see if we get the ball rolling on that. I'll try to make some phone calls after this and see if we can make that happen right there. See
well, you've got my number, so let me know what's happening. You keep me posted.
Will do. Andy Bedard on Big Time Hoops, the podcast. Andy, I really appreciate you coming through. It's been a pleasure. You're one of the all-time greats, and our first Hall of Famer on the podcast. It's a big deal for me, so I really appreciate you making the time, Marie.
You got it. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and take care. And thank you for pumping up Maine kids and helping them and doing what you're doing. It's really, really cool.
Absolutely. That's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for this week's episode. Make sure you're checking out all of our previous episodes, wherever you get your podcast. And tune in next week for another Big Time episode of Big Time Hoops, the podcast. We'll see you then.